Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word. I'd like you to picture the scene. I am in a graveyard with about 30 other people. They are all between the ages of 18 and 25. They are college and university leavers, and they have just landed a job at my company in the call centre. This call centre is a rapidly growing company. They are massively under-resourced and overpromise. And so it became quite the norm that on many occasions I would be sprung upon and said, we've got 30 people downstairs, they all need training on the product or the service, and you need to do it now. And on one particular day, there was no training room, there was no presentation, there were no resources, but I still had to deliver. And so I took this group to the graveyard next door with a flip chart. We sat down and I trained them on, I think it was O2, a customer service, on that sunny day. And the reason why I'm sharing that story is because when we are delivering anything, be that training, a meeting, briefing, a presentation, or a keynote talk, or even a TED talk, the benefit of not having any type of script to rely on, notes or prompts, can really take us far. Not only can it help to confidently articulate what you're saying, but it also helps you to deliver it in a way that doesn't sound robotic, rehearsed or scripted. That in turn makes the audience engage with you more, and your words have more of an impact. Now, I know this is easier said than done because I work with a lot of people who have difficulty with this. They find it hard to remember all the words in their head, no matter how much practice they've done or the work that we do together, because I help people learn in a way that enables them to feel more confident without notes from the beginning. However, it's about confidently articulating what you're saying, and a lot of people rely on notes. But do you see those people delivering talks and presentations, and they do it really naturally and succinctly without any kind of maybe slide or prompt or card? Well, there is actually a way that you can do that. And today in this podcast episode, I'm going to share with you how you can deliver keynote talks or presentations or briefings, whatever it might be, without the need for any type of crutch. So maybe that a slide, a prompt card, notes, whatever it might be. And I'm going to share with you how you can naturally and confidently create a maximum connection with the audience to engage with them and really get the result that you want. It can be done, I promise you. Also, to let you know that I am now a bit of a YouTuber. Yes, I'm in the very early stages, and I had a bout of illness, which meant I couldn't film anything. But I do have a video on my YouTube channel, just search for Helen, which also covers this topic. So you can explore more about this topic over there on the YouTube channel. But in order to understand how we can do away with notes and prompts and scripts and slides, we actually need to understand the problems that occur. So the first one is what I call the over-reliance crutch. Now, when you rely heavily on a note or a prompt, you may become worried about losing your place or forgetting key points. And this dependency can actually create more fear of being unable to continue. Because if the prompts are misplaced or unavailable, or you lose your place, or you feel like you've got to constantly be tied to that prompt, then that can cause you to feel more worried and more anxious when you're delivering. I've had this many times myself in the past, from the days of when I used to do Am Dram Theatre, and I was absolutely petrified of missing things. And so I had so many notes and so many ways of remembering things, to when I was learning to study for exams, to when I auditioned for a consultancy role in a very big training company. And throughout the whole audition, I was literally head down looking at my notes the whole way through. And of course, I didn't get that job. The next thing that we think about with when we're relying on notes and prompts and slides is coming across in a different way. So kind of robotic delivery. So if you follow a script and you are memorizing in your head, then it actually sort of sacrifices spontaneity and authenticity. This can actually make your anxiety worse because you're worrying about deviating from the script. And this is because you're remembering stuff as a script rather than naturally recalling what you already know. Because let's not forget, this is stuff you already know. It's already in there. This is your expertise you're talking about. So you don't need to remember it word for word. But also, when we learn a script, it's actually a different part of brain we're using to process that. And so when it comes out again, when we articulate it, it's going to sound different. Another problem is not having any flexibility within your learning of your words, so that if there are any type of curveballs or problems, you don't get tripped up or lose your place. Now, there's a famous thing that happened recently at Coachella where Grimes did a DJ set, and everything that she'd prepared for in her DJ set went to pot because the USB hadn't formatted in record box correctly. If you're a DJ, you might have heard this. And so every tune was playing double speed, which does happen on my decks as well. And because I know how to beat match, because I'd learned on vinyl, I would probably be able to hash my way through that, but she wasn't able to. So she wasn't able to allow for that curveball. And it's the same when we're learning a presentation or a talk. If we're not allowing for it, there could be a technical problem, there could be a curveball question from the audience. And if you're constantly relying on a script, you may struggle to adapt. And then that can make you feel more worried and nervous and unconfident and all those other things. This takes me back to the graveyard scene where having to be flexible enabled me to not work off the cuff, but be able to be more flexible with what I was delivering. Now, moving on from that, word for word panic is another problem. So the fear of forgetting lines or losing track of where you are. Now, this means that you're thinking, oh God, what happens if I lose my place? What happens if my memory lapses and I freeze in the moment? And this can lead to self-doubt and apprehension and blocking you from even standing on that stage or doing the presentation in the first place. And I've had so many clients, and I've done this myself, where remembering it word for word tripped me up and prevented me from delivering a much more well-rounded, engaging presentation or talk because I was relying on that word for word memory. And finally, it's almost like when you're doing this, you're using slides and prompts and notes and cue cards, that you're actually putting a barrier between yourself and the audience. Because if you think about, I studied theatre and it was all about breaking down the fourth wall. And when you're doing a public speaking, you're delivering a TED talk or a keynote, a presentation, whatever it might be, engaging with the audience is really, really important. So whatever's hindering you from engaging effectively is going to create a lack of connection and, struggle to establish rapport if you're constantly relying on a script or notes to see you through. Engaging with the audience in any type of social communication is absolutely paramount. And if you're over-reliant on these things, these scripts, notes, prompt cards, props, whatever it might be, you're not making eye contact with the people you are delivering to. And this also works with virtual as well. It is really important to consider that too. Now, what I'm not saying is you don't have any type of support in terms of helping you. Sometimes a minimal slide deck can be very powerful because you're using images to enhance what you're saying. You're using maybe keywords and quotes that are helping you navigate through that talk, but they are not there to provide a crutch for you. Now, let's first of all understand, because I'm going to share with you a technique that can help you confidently speak without using scripts to memorize, notes or prompts. But we have to understand how our brains work first, and it's called encoding, storage, and retrieval. I learnt this in my psychology degree and also my work within learning and development, because in my work within learning and development, I was geared into helping people learn information and store information and then retrieve it again and transfer it to the workplace. So the first thing is encoding. Now, in the context of public speaking, it basically involves actively engaging the material being presented for deep processing. And that means relating the information and connecting it with personal experiences, emotions, stories, and visual anchors to enhance your coding experience. So think about anything that's going in when you're creating a talk or a presentation, and this is good communication anyway. You're going to attach a story, a visual anchor, or an emotion or a personal experience to whatever big chunk of information is going in. And I do recommend that's how you structure presentations and talks, because that makes them more engaging anyway. Then there is the storage of the information, and effective storage of presentation material involves rehearsal and repetition to strengthen your memory traces and put it into your long-term memory. And also organizing the information into meaningful structures or patterns can also aid this storage, which I'll come on to in just one second. And then lastly, there is the memory retrieval. And in public speaking, effective retrieval involves recalling key points, examples, and supporting evidence during your presentation without relying on notes and prompts, which is what we're talking about. So this requires a thorough understanding of your material. So you're going to practice and have the confidence in your ability to recall the information. So now that we've understood a bit of the psychology behind it, I'm going to share my techniques that I use myself in every presentation or talk I deliver. And any podcast episode, any video, anything that I do, I use this technique that will help you encode, store, and retrieve the content of your talk so that you can speak with natural confidence, make a big impact with your words, and engage the audience. So let's get into it. The first thing to do is to think about encoding and making it fun. Now, when you are creating your talk or your presentation, what visual anchors, stories, memories, and emotions can you attach to the key points of your talk to make them fun and interesting and colourful and vibrant in your mind, so that when they go into the storage, they're going in a really engaging and effective way? So as with a lot of my clients, when they first come to me, sometimes they think, oh, well, if I do a talk, I'm just going to explain a narrative, a timeline of events. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. But to take your speaking to the next level, you want to tell stories, you want to use analogies and metaphors. I will do another podcast episode a bit more about that. I have spoken about it before, but I will go into that in more detail in another episode. But making that encoding experience fun is going to be absolutely crucial. Then we need to store it effectively for retrieval later on. Okay, so the best way to do that is by chunking it up. So rather than writing out a word for word script that you have to memorize, you create big chunks to remember to go into storage. Okay, so the way that I do that is by putting up a flip chart and creating chunks of the talk. So I might write a keyword for that part of the talk. I might put the title of the story, maybe a few bullet points. I might even draw an image and then put a big circle around that. And that is one chunk of my talk. So I'm not writing out the script for the talk. I'm putting key pieces of information that I can, when I'm rehearsing, I can speak out loud and draw from. And then the next step is to link it together. So these are with things called segues. So imagine a chain, and each link in the chain is the key chunks of your talk, and they are all linked together. So each chunk of your talk is going to have the keywords, the bullet points, the story perhaps, and then there's going to be something that links it with the next part of the talk. This is a highly visual way of learning your talk or presentation for rehearsal, and you practice and you practice and you practice. Once you've got that visual up on the wall, you've got all those links in the chain. I use this exact method to rehearse my TEDx talk. I only had 24 hours notice to create it and rehearse it and then deliver it. So I could only use this method. I got a flip chart. I put up the key chunks of my story, the key things that would link them together. I set a timer for 15 minutes because that's all I had for the talk. And I just practiced and practiced and rehearsed and rehearsed. And a key point to make here is that every single time I rehearsed it, it came out differently. But that's okay. Not only is it okay to help strengthen the storage of your content, but also it helps you articulate each time in a really engaging way, because you're recalling information you've stored from your encoding and your storage, but you're engaging with your audience and you're breaking that fourth wall. It doesn't matter if it's a bit different every time. That's absolutely fine. It's how you're actually recalling that information. If you do that enough times, you're going to be telling a slightly different version every time, but that's all right. And it really helps the audience to connect with you and build rapport. And I just want to mention my client, Tony Brooks, because when we were back and forth practicing his TED talk, which he delivered a few months ago now, he started with slides in his presentation. Then he actually removed those slides, but he still used them in his mind, the slides, as visual anchors for each point of the talk. So that's just a top tip for you from him. Hopefully doing this will enable you to confidently remember the structure of your presentation or your talk without the need for notes or visual clues. As I say, I've got a YouTube video explaining this a little bit more over on my YouTube channel, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How easy do you find this? And have you applied these sorts of techniques before? Please let me know by contacting me, hello@helenpackham.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Don't forget to tune in next time, because we're going to be covering more juicy topics like this. Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.